Good morning, and welcome to the UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual freethinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Karen Alvarez, your worship associate for this morning, and the service today is being led by our minister, Eileen Casey Campbell. This service is also being live streamed to our YouTube channel. We will plan on continuing with this hybrid worship services throughout the church year, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or later on YouTube as you prefer. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway. And whether it's your first visit or your 1000th, we're glad that you came. I have a few announcements to share with you today. Please wear a mask. Masks are available for anyone who forgot one. Religious education and child care. It says RE, I got mixed up. Will be provided this morning by Kaya Mells and Laura Wink. We will be collecting the cards for joys and sorrows after our first hymn. Please fill them out or type into the chat box on Zoom if you have something you would like to share. Join us at our worship Zoom link from 12 to 12:30 on Wednesdays in Lent for a meditation series focused on discernment through creativity. I have a few announcements. We are having a nearly new sale in early May. Please put things aside in your basement as you decide to clean up your garage or your closets and bring them once we announce that we are ready to take them. A reminder, today is potluck. If you brought something, awesome. If you didn't, please stay and join with us anyway. And I want to remind everybody that there's a sign up on the refrigerator in the kitchen for coffee hour volunteers if you are interested in bringing things for the weeks that are not potluck. Does anyone else have any announcements this morning?
The lovely flowers on the table on the piano are a sample of the bouquets of flowers. You can pick up one in the back and make a donation to Landfill. I appreciate that. Whatever you can afford. I think you know what Landfill is. It's our comfort ceremony. Thank you.
As we prepare to be fully together, I remind you to silence your phones and devices. We now enter a space of worship. Technical difficulties. Oren and Elliot, do you want to help with chalice lighting this morning? I invite you to join with me in our chalice lighting words as the flame is lit. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to start with a little confession. I've seen many opening words over the years, and I've even witnessed my wife Erin and daughter Maya provide opening words, and I've always joked that it's the easiest job on any given Sunday, because no matter what you say or how ridiculous the words are, you just finish with, and that's why we come to church. So it's kind of a joke that we do around the house, and we just finish the sentence with, or whatever it is, with those words, and it's all good. When Aaron asked me to put together something for today, on why I come to church and why I pledge, it was a little more difficult to be serious. So, but I gave it my best shot, even to the last minute last night trying to back out, but here I am. So anyway, here it goes. 16 years ago, my now ex-wife and I moved back to Rochester with 2 little kids and a desire to find a church community to help us raise them. We landed at First Unitarian Church of Rochester because of the religious education program and the ideals of the Unitarian Universalist religion. I am an alcoholic in recovery, and at that time I was a new member of AA and really struggling to stay sober. I fell in love with the UU faith because it was very similar to the 12-step program, where I was desperately trying to find a home. In 2016, I was sentenced to 3 years in prison as a result of a DWI accident. Once out of prison, my wife Erin and I wanted to start fresh and join a smaller, more intimate church. So over the past 4 years, via Zoom and in person, Erin and I have been part of this congregation. Here, we have found a beautiful group of people that have accepted us and helped provide us with the necessary energy to face the world. So why do I come to church? Because this church is filled with people that have listened to me for the past few minutes, and in a few minutes won't judge me and will accept me for who I am. So why do I pledge? Because I want to do my part to preserve this space. Thank you.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 404, What Gift Can We Bring? Please rise as you're willing and able and join us to sing.
Good morning. We are a community that holds one another in our joys and in our sorrows. In our celebrations and in our pains, we say to one another, we are with you. So I invite you, if you have joys or sorrows, big or small, on your heart this morning, to write them on the slip of paper in your seat, or to type them into the chat box if you're joining us on Zoom. And I'd like to ask Rory and Ewan to come collect them now, which I didn't tell Danielle about. She's just finding out in this moment that I have chosen these special ushers. Would you come forward and collect the joys and sorrows, guys? Big job. And now it's time for a story. This morning's story is also the theme of our stewardship campaign this year. It is one you've maybe heard before, but we tell it again. The miracle of loaves and fishes from the book of Luke, chapter 9. And it goes like this. Late in the afternoon, the 12 came to him and said, "Send the crowd away so they can go to the surrounding villages and countryside and find some food and lodging, because we're in a remote place here." Jesus replied, "You give them something to eat." His friends answered, "We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Unless we go and buy food for all this crowd, about 5,000 were there." But he said to his friends, "Have them sit down in groups of about 50 each." The disciples did so, and everyone sat down. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he gave thanks, looked up to heaven, and broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to all the people. The people ate and were satisfied. And Jesus' friends picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over. And this is the end of our story.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church and its work. We're going to get organized. This week, we would like to spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gift of time. This week's spotlight, the group, is the worship team. The worship team is responsible for recruiting worship associates to stand up here and give the whole talking part in the mornings. They also are looking for people who are willing to give sermons if you're feeling ambitious. And if you have any Zoom meeting skills at all, they can use people in the back for the technical parts. You can reach out to Tom and Danielle Lyon if this is something that you're interested in. 1/4 of our plate collection for the muddy season goes to Call to Care Canandaigua, an organization working toward the goal of welcoming refugees into our community. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket or by one of the options on your screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept the offering.
Friends, we are holding so much in our hearts this morning. And whatever we hold, we say to one another, we are with you. So we are with you, Oren, who's not feeling well. With Carrie and 2 friends who are struggling with cancer. We're with Kevin in his joy at his mother's 97th birthday and sorrow that Alzheimer's has robbed her of her memories. We are with Jeff and his son Matthew as Matthew expands his growing mushroom business. We are with our friend in gratitude for acceptance to a study abroad program for a daughter and a mom released from the hospital. We are with Karen in gratitude for Melissa, who reminded her it was 8 a.m. this morning and not 7. We share joy with Kaya to see a friend for her birthday. We share our joy with Melissa for a friend who is having a healthy baby. We share our joy with 2 friends who have a new puppy. And finally, we share joy with Elliot, whose birthday is coming up, and we are all very excited about it. For these and all the joys and sorrows and big feelings of our hearts that remain unspoken, I will ask Karen to drop a stone in the water and let us say to one another, we are with you. Will you say it with me? We are with you. And now it is time for religious education. If you are heading to RE, you can go downstairs with Laura now.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of all surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Now is the time in our service for centering and meditation, followed by some shared silence. So let's take a breath, sink into our seats wherever we are, here or at home. Let's remind ourselves that what we mean by silence is the absence of grown-ups talking to each other so that we can listen more closely to the sounds of life. The birds in the trees outside, the cars rushing by, the sound of our children playing, the breath of the neighbor beside us, the beating of our own hearts. When despair for the world grows in Wendell Berry, he says, and he wakes in the night at the least sound in fear of what his life and his children's lives may be, He goes down to lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, he tells us, and the great heron feeds. And that's all well and good for Tennessee Wendell, but it's mud season in my northeast city, so you'll excuse me if I don't lie down on the used needles and trash and 2 inches of slush in my neighborhood park. When despair for the world grows in me, I stay right in my warm bed and look at my neighborhood buy nothing page online. I come into the peace of these fellow humans, giving and receiving in wild abundance. One offers packing foam, and that's literal trash, I think to myself. But it's exactly what her neighbor needs for a child's science fair project. Another asks for a used laptop about to start a new job, a new life, and that's far too big a request, I think to myself. But he's offered the gift he needs thrice. A neighbor asks for a gallon of milk for her children. Their SNAP benefits won't be refilled for another week, she says. And so many groceries show up on her porch just an hour later, she has to offer some back to the group. I read these pages when I start to suspect kingdom will never come. The world is doomed and us with it. But in these 10 square blocks, in this tiny way, the people are already living the world we dream of. Living like they know for certain what I have only suspected. We are one another's miracles. May it be so. So welcome to our annual stewardship service. Maybe you've figured out by this point in the service that this is our annual service about stewardship and giving, and I am delighted you're still here. I don't know about you, but when I realize it's time for the NPR pledge drive, I immediately turn off my radio until it's over. And it is my sincere hope that this morning doesn't make you feel that way. It's hard to talk about money. It's hard to ask for a gift. It's hard to be asked. So let's talk about the Bible instead for a minute. We love that. We're great at it. We're known for it here. The loaves and the fishes. Like, what's that all about? Now, I am not one to try and reason away the miraculousness of a miracle in a miracle story. We know that stories don't have to be true to tell us the truth about life and love and our own deepest selves. But when it comes to the story of the loaves and the fishes, I have my suspicions that this miracle is a little bit more mundane. One of those absolutely ordinary miracles that are no less miraculous for being ordinary, because we know they could happen to any of us. They could be performed by any of us, or in this case, by all of us together. So here's where my suspicions begin, at the end of the story. They collected the leftovers, the text tells us, in 12 baskets full. Humans have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, 7 items total, presumably not needing their own basket each, that they have brought with them for their own dinner. So where did the baskets come from? One of the most important and overlooked characters in the Gospels is the crowd. They show up wherever Jesus does to seek wisdom, healing, help, food. They represent the most vulnerable, caught in the wake of the brutal power of Rome. And Jesus' friends often serve as the literary foil for the crowd. The crowd has faith when his friends are in doubt. Jesus has faith in the crowd, where most of his teaching to his friends is correction. And here is what I imagine is the unwritten truth of this miracle. Jesus decides to share what little they have. Dinner for a few friends, distributed among 5,000, it says, because he trusts the faith of the crowd, the faithfulness of the crowd. And I can't help but think that this crowd, who have so little, who have been made poor, hungry, sick by the might of empire, feel inspired by the small offering Jesus sent out and add a bit of whatever's in their own pockets. A crust of bread thrown in here, a few dried figs there. I imagine they saw the generosity of their neighbors beside them and started to pass their own baskets filled with what little food they had brought. I imagine they run to the nearest town and gather a little more to add in. The miracle, in my mind, isn't about some kind of supernatural fish replication magic of Jesus. It's about his faith in the generosity of people, about faith that the spirit of scarcity serves no one, but a spirit of abundance is self-perpetuating. Oftentimes, when I'm out and about in the community or meeting with UU colleagues, and someone asks me, "How's your congregation?" I say, "Really good. Things are going great for us. We've got joy, we've got people, we've got passion, we've got everything but money." And it's true. We are surrounded in this little community by an abundance of good. And we didn't raise enough money to meet our needs last year. We fairly regularly have to pull from our small rainy day savings to balance our budget at the end of the year. I need you to know that. I need us to be open-eyed about how few loaves and fishes there are in our basket. But it's not all I need you to know. So let me tell you a secret. Maybe I shouldn't tell you this on Stewardship Sunday. Don't tell the stewardship team that I did. Plug your ears, Aaron and Pat. But I do a lot of things I shouldn't do, and I'm not about to stop today. Here's the secret. I would take a crowd of people I have faith in over a full bank account any day of the week. This building is not a church. It is an asset of the church. Churches are made of people, not assets. And passionate, faithful people will find the resources they need to live out the mission that they hold together. People without money can make miracles happen, but money without people can do nothing on its own. Before I was a minister, I worked for several years on the regional staff of a different denomination. I helped close down 6 failing churches in my time there. I never closed a church because it ran out of money. All of them had money left to redistribute at the end, sometimes obscene amounts of money. Every church I watched failed because it ran out of people. Oftentimes, they ran out of people because their only faithfulness was to the money they managed, to the assets they were stewarding, and not toward a shared vision of beloved community and a world transformed. So as much as I sometimes dream about the resources to do more for our wider community, to do more for one another, you see why I say I'd prefer a faithful crowd over a big-ass endowment fund every day of the week. So, okay, here's some not so brutal honesty from me. Gentle honesty. All our loaves and fishes on the table, if you will, because I trust your faithfulness enough to put our scant resources in your hands. Our operating budget for the next year is approximately $90,000. It's not exact because we'll vote on it in June to make it official. That's a budget for maintenance, not growth and not austerity. It keeps the lights on and the sanctuary warm on Sundays. It pays our staff a fair wage for their labor. It lets us maintain the programming and outreach that we've been doing as they are. And almost 100% of our operating budget is funded by direct giving from members and friends, from all of you. We're a newish church, less than 30 years old, and we don't have a 250-year-old endowment to draw from. We are building this thing ourselves, and we're funding it ourselves too. That direct giving takes the form of a relatively small chunk of plate donations, what people toss in the basket or Venmo during the offering on Sundays, and a much larger chunk of pledged giving throughout the year. A pledge, in case you're new to church stuff or not, but you never figured this bit out and it felt too awkward to ask, a pledge is not a gift itself. It is the promise of a gift, and that's what we're beginning to ask for in this pledge season, a promise from you. So when I make my pledge, I promise a certain amount to the church over the course of the next fiscal year. Our fiscal year starts July 1st, by the way. The staff and elected leaders use those promises to be able to plan and budget for the coming year. And then I can give toward the amount I promised all at once, or in monthly checks, or bank withdrawals, or once or twice a year, in whatever format works for me. So the maintenance budget we're working on for the next year means we need an average pledge of $1,800 from each household to make all that possible. Now, I want to be clear that that does not mean that we expect every household will give $1,800 to the church this year. Some of you have just heard that number and are thinking, holy cow, I could never afford it. And you don't have to. Church is not a restaurant where you pay for whatever you order. Church is not even a club where we all pay the same dues to belong. This is a collective community where we take care of one another. So while $1,800 is the average household need, we know some of you are luckier than average. Lucky enough to be able to afford to give your own share and support several others. I have faith that if you know you're luckier than average financially, you'll do just that. Some of you have household budgets that cannot sustain the average pledge, and I have faith that you'll give what you can afford and put your trust in your fellow congregants to make up the rest. And our church has been functioning on this model of giving. Those who have more give more to cover for those who have less since its inception. largely because churches have functioned on this model of giving at least since the early 20th century. Sometimes they use savings to get through a lean year or accomplish a big project, but mostly the formula was trust that generosity of wealthier members will cover the needs of the less wealthy members, and the budget balances at the end of the year. And my friends, here's where we get into the slightly more brutal honesty, still very gentle. In these death throes of capitalism, that math isn't mathing anymore. Churches everywhere are looking into the future and realizing that member giving is no longer a long-term sustainable way to fund their work on its own. Even when members are abundant, more and more their resources are not. In our congregation, in the 5 years I've been your minister, nearly every new member who's joined us has been between 30 and 45 years old. I think there are 2 exceptions to that, one at each end of the spectrum. We know that even before this current inflation crisis, the cost of living has outpaced wage increases for decades. And this generation, that 30 to 45-year-old group, is who is largely, so far, most impacted by that. As an elder millennial myself, I will offer you this example. The federal minimum wage is the same today that it was almost 15 years ago in my first job working out of college. But the average cost of my college degree has doubled in that time period. When the average baby boomer was 40, their wealth was larger than their debt. And that is not true for the 40-year-old millennial today. We paid a much higher price for our education. Often it was only available to us by way of exploitative lending. Our wages have barely moved an inch in 15 years, to say nothing of keeping up with costs. The volatility of a deregulated real estate lending market has meant that the price of real estate kept most of us renting into our middle age instead of building wealth by way of property ownership. And all of this means that while our baby boomers members' income decreases as they enter retirement, our newer millennial members' income is not there to make up for it. I tell you this for a couple reasons. First, I want you to hear from me that when we look at our shortfall, that shortfall between what our congregation needs and what our members' giving has provided, I know that's not a deficit in your generosity or your worthiness as people in this community. That is a deficit in the system that has exploited us all. I have faith that this crowd is giving what we can. And second, I tell you because when the math isn't mathing anymore, when we realize our old model isn't going to keep working the way it used to, I want you to know I would still rather have a church full of people with joy, passion, and love than a church full of money. Because I have faith that joyful, passionate people will find a new way, and money by itself will find nothing. A living faith takes the form of action. So I have asked your church board, at the advice of our stewardship team, to convene a fundraising committee. This committee will focus on raising funds outside of our annual pledge drive, a new stream of revenue, specifically from the community beyond our own membership. They'll also think creatively about the big picture of sustainably funding a church in a future where members have fewer resources to give from. There are at least 2 spots still waiting to be filled on this committee, so if you're that person who has an extra basket of bread to pass around in the form of creative energy toward building new models of abundance, please see me. Most importantly, the mostly gentle, not so brutal honesty I bring you this morning is not meant to generate anxiety about our future as a congregation. We are asking for your gift, And we are telling you we know it might not be enough in the long term to just give toward our work together. But I do not tell you these things to make you worry. I'm not worried. If we're counting our fishes and our loaves, it seems like we don't have much. But I'm looking at this crowd, and I see nothing but abundance. We have abundant joy, abundant passion, abundant love, abundant devotion to our mission in this world. And I have faith in this crowd to make miracles happen together. May it be so, and amen.
People smile and tell me I'm the lucky one, and we've just begun. I think we're gonna have a son. He will be like her and be as free as a dove, conceived in love. The sun is gonna shine above. And even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything will bring a chain of love. In the morning when I rise, bring a tear of joy to my eyes and tell me everything is gonna be alright. Love a girl who holds the world in a paper cup. Drink it up. Love her and she'll bring you luck. And if you find she helps your mind, better take her home. Yeah, don't you live alone. Try to earn what lovers owe. And even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything bring a chain of love. And in the morning when I rise, bring a tear of joy to my eyes and tell me everything is gonna be alright. See a smile, a baby child in my grown boy's eyes. And now I realize it couldn't be a better life. Now I know what I've been told is really true, my friend. Yeah, the circle never ends. Gonna catch it coming round again. And even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything will bring a chain of love. In the morning when I rise, bring a tear of joy to my eyes and tell me everything is gonna be alright. Even though you ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything will bring a chain of love. In the morning when I rise, bring a tear of joy to my eyes and tell me everything's gonna be alright.
A quick announcement that you can make a pledge to support the good work of this church on our website, the same page that you can go to give your Sunday morning offering. And by paper, I think, I'm looking at the stewardship team members. Online is best. Yeah. And if you don't have that link, we can get you paper if you need paper. You just see us. Online is probably easiest. And if you don't have that link, it went out to you in an email just this past weekend. And if you didn't get that email, we are happy to share the link with you. Let us close. I believe in miracles, friends, because I believe in us. I know we have within us the holy power to be miraculous for one another. Will you rise in body or in spirit and sing together hymn number 126?
Please join us in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.